Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. It's been 2 long years since the devastating fire destroyed our home, and the scars of that experience still linger in my memory. The once cozy haven that my wife and I cherished was reduced to rubble and ash, leaving us with only painful reminders of what was lost. However, with insurance on our side, we embarked on the daunting task of rebuilding our lives from scratch. In the aftermath of the fire, we realized that living under the scrutiny of a homeowners association was not the paradise we once believed it to be. Our previous optimism shattered as we encountered obstacle after obstacle. The homeowners association, in all its glory, decided to make our lives even more difficult by contesting our plans to rebuild our home. Their claim? Our proposed design violated their precious bylaws and was not pretty enough to fit the neighborhood's outdated aesthetic. Our desire to create a more modern and functional home clashed with the Homeowners Association's rigid adherence to the past. We wanted an upgraded kitchen, a contemporary central air system, and a floor plan that reflected our personal style. Yet, the Homeowners Association insisted that we conform to the architectural norms of the 1930s when the neighborhood was established. Despite our attempts to compromise, our blueprints were repeatedly rejected without any clear justification. Countless meetings, compromises, and redesigns followed, as we desperately tried to appease the Homeowners Association's stubborn demands. We abandoned unique roof shapes and innovative fireplace designs, opting instead for a watered-down version of our original vision. Still, they were unyielding, claiming that the interior changes were too modern for the neighborhood's character. A year passed and frustration consumed our spirits. The Homeowners Association's relentless opposition left us feeling hopeless. They even went as far as threatening legal action, accusing us of violating their code and devaluing the entire community. Faced with mounting debts and the constant fear of a lawsuit, we resorted to hiring a lawyer to protect our rights and navigate this bureaucratic nightmare. Finally, the decisive day arrived, the day our lawyer faced off against the Homeowners Association representative in a crucial meeting. As our advocate presented our case, it was clear that our lawyer's prowess far exceeded that of our opponents. The logic and reason behind our arguments resonated with the Homeowners Association, and they finally relented. Our most recent blueprint, albeit with compromises, was approved, marking a significant victory in our battle against the Homeowners Association. With cautious optimism, we began construction on our new home. The design might not be as avant-garde as we had initially envisioned, but it bore the stamp of our resilience and determination. We focused on the positives: a charming porch, a soaring ceiling with an elegant chandelier that would infuse our rebuilt house with a touch of our personalities. Now, on the cusp of moving into our newly constructed abode, we can finally breathe a sigh of relief. The harrowing journey has taught us the immense power wielded by Homeowners Association S and the dire need for accountability. As we prepare to step into our restored sanctuary, I can't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and caution. The battle might be won, but the war against overbearing Homeowners Association S continues. The next one is a pro-revenge story. About 5 years ago, I bought a 1,500 square feet townhome condo in an up-and-coming town right in the downtown area. This is a valuable property, with home prices having increased 35% since I purchased it. It was a wonderful area within walking distance of everything I loved as a single bachelor. When I moved in, all my neighbors were wonderful, except for one person. She belonged to the Homeowners Association board but was moving on because you can only serve 8 years. Let's call her Gimpy J. Gimpy J is a 65-plus-year-old widow whose husband died unexpectedly from a heart attack. She doesn't have much to do. She met a man online and moved on, and I was happy for her. Talking to my passive neighbors, I heard bits and pieces of why things were problematic at the Homeowners Association because of Gimpy J and another woman who had to move because of age. On the board, the two of them bullied residents. They changed the landscaping from mulch to pine needles, stopped upkeep on the pool deck because they hated kids, and reported one house for anything and everything because their kids were too loud. Gimpy J even bullied a woman with MS because she was feeding feral cats and attracting raccoons and possums near our homes, leading to a call to animal control. Residents did not like her. I got married and my wife has been living with me for 2 years now. We are very happy. During this time, Gimpy J began spending more and more time with her new boyfriend, who lives about an hour away from our house in the country. She initially spent the weekend there, then a week. until she began living there all the time with very little time spent at our complex, maybe 15 minutes to 2 hours a month. Now, in our complex, there is only one rule on parking. Each resident is entitled to 2 spots close to their building, but not necessarily in front of their unit, and there is no limit to the parking spots you may occupy. The key word here is close. We have new folks on the board who are all under 40 years of age, and the place is starting to get spruced up. We have friends over regularly, and they park in front of our unit. Gimpy J had 2 hip replacements done, and we had not seen her in about 7 months. In our little area of the complex, there are 8 townhomes that face each other, 4 on one side and 4 on the other. There are 8 spots for 3 homes, and a handicapped spot for one of our neighbors. Gimpy J started coming back around in January for longer periods, a day on the weekend to go out downtown or to visit friends. She started complaining that we were in her spots. Again, there are no assigned spots. We were willing to move our friends' vehicles for her to another empty spot. That is, until she started occupying 2 spots at a time with her vehicle. This behavior continued, as she would come in taking 2 spots anytime she was here. The rules in the master deed say no vehicle can take more than 1 spot without written permission from the board of directors or property management group, and it cannot continue for more than 2 days with permission. This rule was meant to account for residents moving in and out. Suddenly that spring, my wife had a medical issue and was hospitalized for 4 days and on disability for 8 weeks. My mom was the only family member on both sides who had the capability of coming down to where we lived to help us out. She drove down, and we needed to occupy 3 spots. I promptly let our property management company know, and the board of directors know what was happening, providing them with my mom's make, model, and plate number, and that she would be here 6, 8 weeks, just in case anyone had an issue. Gimpy J's first time home in 6 weeks, we had a car in front of her house, but she had room for her vehicle. She marched over and banged, and I mean it was loud, on the door, demanding we move the car, and tried to open my front door and walk into my home. Yes, she tried to enter my home. It shook my dog, who peed herself, it was that loud, and who in turn growled and chased her out. I promptly told her there was no assigned parking and the rule is 1 car, 1 spot. We would move a car out of respect one last time, and then we saw that she occupied 2 spots with her car as usual. The next time it happened, 2 weeks later, we refused to move our vehicle. We also began taking pictures for our records and communicating with our homeowners association about Gimpy J's erratic behavior. She continued to arrive, bang on our door, and scream at us for having a car parked in her spot. One time, while banging on the door, she dented the frame with her keys. A few more times when we were not home, she would come in and park, occupying 2 spots. I took more pictures for my records in case something happened because of her erratic behavior. Finally, it happened. About this time last year, I was at the gym, and I got a call from my mom and my wife, frantic that someone is going to tow my wife's car. I drove home as fast as I could, and it was Gimpy J's boyfriend's son and his girlfriend, whom we had never met. This person, who doesn't live here and has no business here, is screaming at us and insulting my pregnant wife and mother. My mother-in-law pays X dollars a month for these spots. You duckers are breaking the rules. Imma tow that SUV. All while drinking beer. Now we know he can't do anything except scream and try to intimidate us outside. He calls his mother-in-law, who is not married to his father, about the situation. Gimpy J drives an hour to our complex. When she gets here, she parks her car behind all 3 of ours and gets out, blocking us in. And I had enough. I quickly snapped some pictures. I called the police. I will not feel unsafe or be harassed in my neighborhood by people who do not live there, or are barely there. Gimpy J realizes I called the police and moves her car. I print out all my documentation, pictures, and communication from the Homeowners Association. I quickly shower because I'm disgusting from the gym and throw on a nice polo shirt and shorts. My pregnant wife sits in her rocking chair, and my mother sits calmly at the kitchen table. The police arrive, and we can see them hollering, waving their arms widely, and screaming. The police come to the door, and we kindly open up. Gimpy J tries to walk in before I block her and ask her to leave my property, and I invite the police officers inside. We apologize that we even have to call them over something so petty, but our neighbor is acting crazy, and her behavior has been escalating. We explain what is happening, show them communication from the Homeowners Association, and show them pictures. The officer quickly had enough of these individuals. He imposes a no trespass order on my porch and will not let her near my property. If she steps foot on our walkway, she is in violation of the order and will be arrested. We watch him go back out and explain calmly to her, and she starts screaming along with her boyfriend's kid and his girlfriend. This goes on for a while, and the officer calls for backup, and a second car arrives promptly. Gimpy J promptly declares it's her property too, as she pays her fees and claims he can't do that because everything is community property outside of a home. She marches up to my stoop and he arrests her, charging her with disorderly conduct and harassment. The police then tell Gimpy J's boyfriend's son to go home. He gets in his truck with his girlfriend and they drive off. As soon as he hits the road outside of our complex, the second police officer pulls him over for DUI. That's right, the drunk guy screaming at my wife and mother had been drinking the entire time and was intoxicated. The police couldn't do anything in the complex but could when he hit the main road. Both of them were hauled off to jail, and we stopped hearing from them about parking. 2 days later, Gimpy J and her boyfriend show up to the complex and park her boyfriend's car in our lot and leave it parked in one spot to ensure it's hers. Well, they drive off, and we don't hear from them for a week, and no one is home. Since Gimpy J's boyfriend does not live here and his car is abandoned, I called the Homeowners Association to report it. They came and towed his SUV. Gimpy J put her house on the market 8 weeks later. The next one is a petty revenge story. My daughter, 19F, had a group of high school friends for years. Fast forward to her freshman year of college, and her new roommate becomes part of the friend group. I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer the same day she started classes that year. As the year goes on, her relationship with some of these friends starts to have problems, but the roommate still seems solid, so they sign a lease for sophomore year. By the beginning of sophomore year, all of her high school friends, 4, have turned on my daughter, and she's struggling to figure out why. By the end of September, she finds out the roommate has been playing both sides of the fence and has ultimately sided with my daughter's old friends and continues to see them regularly. This, of course, creates a nasty living situation for my daughter, but she does her best to manage through. As time goes on, I come to find out that her friends turned on her because they felt that her emotional needs were toxic for them to be around. My daughter was having panic attacks about my cancer and other normal things, and was reaching out to her friends for someone to talk to, but they couldn't handle it. A few weeks ago, the roommate invited 2 of these friends to stay over. My daughter asked that they pick another time, as she had work and then an all-nighter ahead of her to finish her finals, and she didn't want to be in the apartment if they were going to be there. The roommate ignored this request. My daughter walked in on them being there after work and had a panic attack. The roommate looked at her and said, "See, this is why you have no friends when you behave like this. What do you expect?" This week, my daughter managed to find a way to move out before the roommate came back from break. The couch, the coffee table, the rug, the pots and pans, the dishes, the shower curtain, and so on. All of it was my daughter's. The internet, the electricity, the water, all in my daughter's name. She took everything, moved out, and left the roommate to come back from break with none of it working, and all of the shared space items gone. And she left her a note signed, "What did you expect?" Oh, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when she walks in. Update. My daughter received a text from one girl in the group, not the roommate, asking if they can talk to her about bringing some of the stuff back, as the roommate was thinking of calling the cops. My daughter simply said, "No, I only took my stuff, so go ahead and call the cops, but don't ever text me again." So not much of an update, but at least we know that revenge was definitely served. The next one is an entitled people story, so this happened many years ago, sometime after I got my first major contract. My shop had to expand quickly to meet the needs of the contract, so I hired several people based more on qualifications than personality. I also failed to do proper background checks. Very important. Don't be dumb like me. This would prove to be a major misstep on my behalf. I hired a couple of older gentlemen who had shoes older than me. Great group of guys for the most part. One guy I hired will be forever burned into my brain, and is why I am very careful about who I hire nowadays. The guy named Doug, yeah, Doug can bite one, came to me with over 20 years of experience and every certification needed for the job. Doug told me he was let go from his previous job because of downsizing. I didn't care what the reason was, I needed people. I hired Doug, and at first he was great. He didn't start showing his true colors until about a month after being hired. The first thing was him being caught in the men's room pleasuring himself. He also never closed the stall door, claimed he was claustrophobic. The next day, he was rubbing his pants while looking at a Victoria's Secret catalog. I told him to cut it out but enter the wrench. During this time, a union stepped in and my shop unionized. We eventually came to terms on a lot of stuff, but at first it was very rough. They felt that I was being unfair to Doug. I backed off and Doug got worse. He started walking around touching some of the mechanics. Eventually, the union and I came to an agreement that Doug has got to go. We sat him down and I handed him his last check. What was to follow I was shocked about and will never forget. Doug pulled his pants down and told us all to suck it. His language was far worse. I just can't bring myself to type that. It is burned into my brain what he did say, and it would make a porn star blush. He walked out with his pants down, yelling at everyone. I paid for a tow truck flatbed to move his toolbox to his house and thought it was over. Enter his revenge. The next day, he entered the employee parking lot and took a crowbar to every car. When one of the guys went to confront him, he pulled out a plastic gun. We all thought the gun was real and called the police. He finished smashing every windshield and drove off. Back then, I didn't have security cameras, so thankfully one of the guys recorded him. The police caught up with him and arrested him. He got a bunch of charges that I can't remember half of them, but I know he was charged with vandalism and threatening with a firearm. Now, if I were to run a background check on him before hiring him, I would have found out that he was on the sex offender list and had a record. And though background checks are often vague if they have anything at all, I would have known not to hire this guy. After that day, I installed security cameras, and I started performing background checks. Don't be dumb like me. The next one is an entitled parent story. This one's a sad story all around, but it primarily revolves around two kids with very sad stories. Worth noting, the people I was celebrating this Labor Day with have a very it-takes-a-village approach to child minding. An adult is left in charge of a little one, and if the little one and the adult part ways, the adult makes sure a different adult has charge of the kid. Leads to some interesting situations where a kid is MIA, but we've never actually lost track of one and have a 100% safety rate. Well, aside from trips and falls and scrapes, but that's just the price of doing business when you're little. The first kid is Max. He's 5 and was put in sole custody of his dad after his mom was arrested. He wears a diaper still due to the trauma he suffered, and his dad feels like he failed him and, as a result, seems to be incapable of disciplining the kid. It's been 2.5 years now, and people watch Max like a hawk because he can't be trusted near animals or with other people's things. When caught, he turns on the waterworks and his dad doesn't do anything. The second kid is Alicia, and she's 4 and was adopted by a pair of my friends. She's got a speech impediment that her bio parents tried to solve by beating it out of her. When we first met her, everyone was given firm instructions. No using the R word in her presence at all, for any reason. Second rule, if she feels comfortable enough to speak to you, you listen. Period. Third rule, no surprise hugs, no fist bumps, no high fives. If she's having a good day, low fives are allowed. If she gets triggered, she just shuts down, doesn't cry, doesn't do anything, doesn't respond to outside stimuli. She just goes away, and it is the saddest thing to see. Sweetest little kid, though. Her smile lights up the whole room when it comes out. On to the events. Alicia has just hit her Y phase a few years late for obvious reasons, and she'd asked me why she gets shocked by doorknobs while running around in stocking feet. I happen to rather enjoy these questions, and I was in the middle of a talk with her about why that is. She was speaking when Max and his dad arrived. I was down on my haunches and listening very closely when Max runs up and just shoves Alicia to the ground and says, "Shut up, Weetod! Uncle OP, my iPad is broken, can you fix it?" brandishing a tablet at me. I won't lie to you and say it wasn't a struggle to keep my voice even, but I knew yelling would only make things worse for Alicia. "Excuse you? I'm not fixing a thing until you apologize to Alicia and wait your turn." "But Uncle OP, my tablet!" "Apologize and then wait your turn." "No!" "Then stop calling me uncle and find someone else to fix it. Bullies don't get my help and they certainly don't get to call me uncle." Poor Alicia was just lying where she fell, not even crying. Hadn't sat up, just looked like a robot that had run out of batteries. I scooped her up and told Max, "You stay right here while I find Alicia's mom. This conversation isn't over." He just starts screaming, "No bully, no bully." I snuck inside the house with Alicia where it was quieter for a moment and said, "Alicia, I know you're scared right now, but I need to tell you a secret. Can you nod if you can hear me right now? This is very important." I got the tiniest little nod and I told her, "Max has the exact same problem talking that you do, and I understand you much better. You can't tell anyone I told you that though, okay?" Bless her little heart. She actually whispered, "Really?" "Of course. Would I lie to you?" Tiny shake of the head. I tracked down her mom outside and gave her the Cliff Notes version of what went down. Mom looked like she wanted to rend Max limb from limb, but I told her the plan. She was appeased. They went someplace quiet so Alicia could come out of her shell, and I went back to where I'd left Max. Max was being held by his dad, and his dad was asking Max what had happened to his tablet, and he was just repeating, "No bully." Apparently, after I'd left, Max had smashed his tablet on the ground, and his dad had no idea what happened. I raised my voice a little so people would pay attention and asked Max to repeat what he'd said to Alicia. He shook his head and started crying, still shouting, "No bully," and sobbing hysterically. When I relayed the exact events that happened, his dad had the grace to look ashamed. "Come on, OP, you know what he went through? Can't we cut him a break? He doesn't know any better." This is the canned response anytime Max is caught doing something like kicking a dog or stealing a toy or phone to play with. I was done. Further discussion ensued that I won't bother relaying, but Max's dad refused to do anything to actually discipline his child, just like every other time Max acts out. But this time we were done. This is so far across the line from acceptable, it boggles the imagination. We were planning on doing campfire s'mores after dinner, but I called an audible. The new plan is putt-putt golf and then ice cream, and whoever does the best at putt-putt gets the biggest, bestest ice cream the place has. Every single adult agreed Max and Max's dad shouldn't come with. They got to stay home and think about what they'd done. Miraculously, her recorded scores for putt-putt were 18 hole-in-ones, and listening to her laugh while she tried to contend with an ice cream that was very nearly as big as she was made everyone's night. Max and his dad were gone by the time we got back. I hope his dad gets his act together. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.